Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
Yeah. There's no mercy in this world, just hunger-thirsty persons in different versions. Each new update, that shit worsens. Why? Pull back the curtain and you'll see the different vermin. We all have different burdens that all seem to cause disturbance. Yo, so do me a favor, don't treat me like a neighbor. Don't need the different flavors of your problems just to savor. I've got my own issues, I need a comb to get through. Don't need to groan with you, just go get your own tissue.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world?
Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Phillies Talk Podcast, where we talk all things Phillies baseball, the post-game stuff, a hot show, whatever the case may be, all things Phillies related baseball and stuff like that. But before we get into it, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you smash that like button. Also, hit that subscribe when you guys are new. Definitely shout out the content. Every little bit helps to grow the channel. And we're also coming to life on the Hardcore Sports Network as well. Make sure you leave a like over there. Also, hit that red subscribe button. We're on the road to 200 on the Hardcore Sports Network. Make sure you leave a like down below. But yeah, let's just kind of get right into it. So with the off season kind of underway for both all 32 and MLB teams, one of those for the fighting the Phils. There's a lot of things I want to kind of get off my chest a little bit. Kind of like going over like these like season recap and stuff like that, which I will talk in just a second. I mean, let's be real. Like, kind of give a few thoughts. One of the thoughts is like how the Phillies finished the season. There's a lot of things in the way that I see it is how the Phils want to actually finish the season is they actually surprisingly finished the season pretty decently. The last, if you really think about the last 3 or 4 years or so often, and for those who have really followed, it's just been nothing but at least even 500, or sometimes we finish sometimes below 500, all that stuff. But I think overall, though, I think the Phillies have really done a really good job of really putting together a really decent season, and which leads to my first topic is the season recap. There's a lot of things that kind of breaking down into it is that the fact of the matter is The Phillies finished 89-75 through the 162 games. Really looking at it too, is just how the Phillies got there. It also stems back to the fact that through before June 3rd, the Phillies were 22-29. I was 7 games below 500. I think 11 and a half out of the division, almost 10 and a half out of the wild card. And then June 3rd comes along, and as the Phillies fan base, part of myself included, where we kind of, like I said, at this point, what's it going to take to fire Joe? I mean, there's been like the whole hashtag fire Joe Girardi kind of thing. And it actually came to pass. I mean, June 3rd, we fired Joe Girardi. Because I feel like Dave Dombrowski realized, and the front office and the ownership realized, this team was not going to go in a direction where they want to go, especially under Joe Girardi. June 3rd comes along. Girardi gets fired. From what we've understood now, when Nick Castellanos comes out, and people who've seen the show know how I feel about Nick Castellanos, even on social media. But that's besides the point. Nick Castellanos and many players will come out and say, there was no communication from George Girardi. Basically, in other words, give him the cold shoulder and just let these guys hang out to dry, so to speak. I mean, we've seen like young guys like Stott really hasn't really gotten better under Girardi, but once Girardi left, I mean, we just really just took the time to, I would say, kind of develop our homegrown talent. I mean, but it's just that the 2022 season, I wish it could have been a lot different, but knowing that what we had, I don't think and this is fun. This is what I said this all the time. I was one of many people that I had this, even though we were going to make the playoffs, I didn't expect it to go far based on the roster personnel that we have. I have, my buddy Todd, who's not here at the moment, my co-host of the show. He says that we were not making it out of the wild card. I didn't think we were making it out of the divisional round, because the Cardinals, so far, if you saw the first 2 games, their bullpen kind of collapsed on them. And that's where I think the Phillies took advantage of that mistakes that the Cardinals have made, and we wound up sweeping them in 2 games of the wild card. I even had this on record saying, the Phillies were losing 5 games to the Atlanta Braves. We beat them in 5 games. None of us even have going past the division or the championship series, which we haven't done that since 2010, 2011, 2010 to be exact. It's just that this team just really has really overcome the many different, well, I would say not say overcome adversity, but kind of to where they wanted to have this, put the chip on the shoulder to where they want to try to make at least a World Series appearance, or at least try to win one since 2008. Now, the fact that we did going against the Astros in the World Series, I knew it's just like, I didn't really have us winning the World Series, because not the way, if you looked at the roster construction, everything else pretty much was in favor of the Houston Astros. But the one thing that a lot of players should get this Phillies credit for, they know how to fight, be resilient. I think now that a lot of times you don't really see teams really put up the fight that the Phillies have done. Now, granted, there were some moments where the Phillies just didn't look like themselves at all. I mean, if you looked at it, they got no hit at home. That was kind of that's where I kind of feel like that's where that time morale just kind of just fell apart, so to speak. And knowing that was kind of, for me, I think to myself, yeah, that could have been that was the series ender right there. Now, granted, it did go to 6 games, but what I mean by that is it's how that combined no hitter pretty much ended that kind of that momentum that we had. Yo, what up, Mitch? And shout out to Randy that's in the chat. So what up, guys? But looking at everything else, though, like I said, man, the 2022 season was a very good season towards when we brought in used Ron Thompson as the interim manager, and obviously gave him a 2-year extension, and also gave Kevin Long a 2-year extension as well. So we got a couple guys on this coaching staff extensions, and rightfully so, because I feel like Kevin Long has really shown. Let's be real, reuniting with Schwarber. Probably gave the best first year of Schwarber that's ever had in his career, hitting 46 bombs, almost driving on 100 runs. Now, granted, the strikeout count is a bit high, but I do think Kevin Long is going to help Kyle Schwarber fix that, which I do think if Schwarber can fix that strikeout percentage, I think you got a good, decent all around player. Now, defensively, not the greatest, but which I will talk about. One of the guys when it comes to, especially now with free agency, especially taking under place. And I think we're like day 3, D4 in because I mean there's some legitimate options to have for shortstop, outfield, and I'll get to shortstop in just a second because there's a lot of issues or things I want to kind of clear up because there's a lot of where like we got one half of the fan base saying let's see what Espinal third. I can definitely see that. That's for sure. Because we know that Espin. Well, yeah, but look at that this way, especially in the Phillies case. Though, I don't think we really don't really have that many holes to fill, but I do think we can improve in some spots where we can actually bring in better talent to improve those spots. I mean, obviously, bits and pieces in the bullpen, mostly the middle relief, bringing some decent bench pieces. I mean, you got Sosa to start off. If Ronald Torres wasn't gone already out of the league, I think he could have stuck around. I think and for those who kind of seen the show, how very high I was on Ronald Torres, because Torres is one of those guys that it's like basically he's like a spark plug, as you would think, for a guy that's really never showed any playing time. Another Joe Girardi guy, just really never got the chance to be a good bench player. I mean, that's just the way that I see it. But that's besides the point. Going to the 2023, if we do want to make these said moves, which I'll talk about in the free agency in just a second, kind of give what I'm expecting going into 2023. What I'm expecting, the expectations for 2023 is I'm hoping for a better record than what we finished with this past season, instead of at least get at least 90 plus wins, because on paper we have a potential to be a 101 team. Now it's all about depending to how you're going to execute that, especially with Rob Thompson still going to be there for the next 2 years, hopefully a lot longer, because I think Thompson has shown to, and speaking of Rob Thompson, though, there's a lot of stuff that I think he has to clean up, is to let some of these pitchers finish at least 5-6 innings at the least. That's where I will say, he has to stop overmanaging a lot of things, because that has kind of hurt the Phillies in some games. Don't get me wrong. But that's just the way that I have looked at it. But and also, if you want to give my record prediction, through 162 games, I think we can definitely play at least 92, 93 wins. I would say 92, 162. 100. Let's see. 92. Hang on, I'm trying to do some math here. But I mean, at least like 100 about like 93 and what? I would say like 92 and 70 is the way that I would see it. Kind of match with the 2008 Phils, how they finished in 162 games, 92 wins to 70 losses. Because I think the way that this roster has been roster has been constructed, to me, you got JT and Garrett Stubbs, your two catchers. You got a solid front three in the rotation in Wheeler, Nola, Ranger, Suarez. Now the back end, you can put that into question. I do think we can get some 2 back end starters. That's for sure. But shortstop, yes, I know that's kind of one of our biggest, I would say one of the biggest weak points, but I do think we can upgrade on that, because we know that we're definitely going to move Stock to second base, which I'll talk about in just a second. Knowing that the free agency expectations it's kind of the exact same thing, I would say. Just because with the free agency underway, with the Phillies have a lot of money to spend. And I've been seeing people say, that the Phillies have 75 mil. I don't think that's mostly coming off the books to spend, but I think they're going to spend more than 75 mil in this free agency, because knowing how this team is very aggressive. Now, that's kind of where my expectation is. Try to be smart of who you bring in. Especially with the debate that's been going on with now with the Phillies showing interest in Bogarts. And we know that there's a good portion of the fans that want Trey Turner. Kind of, I mean, the way that I see it, you can't go wrong with one or the other. Now, for those who are especially watching on Twitter or even on Facebook, this is the way that I see it. And I actually have them. And this is coming from Baseball Reference too. And I have the number what they put up this past season. Now, granted, you're gonna get Trey Turner at 20. He's still got entering the prime of his career. Has a career WAR of 29.7. Now, for those who don't know, WAR is basically how it's measured. It's probably one of the weirdest advanced statistics, but the way I could describe WAR is basically how it measures how valuable a player is to their teams. But Bogarts, what you're getting out of him, career WAR wise, almost a 35 career WAR as a shortstop, even at the age of 30. So, knowing that Trey Turner, what you're going to get between Bogarts and Turner, that Turner is has really good knows how to steal bags on perfect opportunities. I mean, he put up 20-70 this past season, where Bogarts can put up 8. Because Bogarts is really never known to be a base hitter. There's a couple instances where he's had like 10 or so more stolen bases in what is like first 4 years in the league. But Bogarts, at this point of his career, can give you, at least 10 to 15 stolen bags every so often, because that's kind of where Bogarts is. Now, both shortstops are on base machines, because Trey Turner put up a 466 slugging compared to a 456 by Xander Bogaerts, almost basically a 10-point difference. Now, Turner, at times, you would say he has a tendency to strike out a lot more than Xander Bogaerts, because Xander Bogaerts, he finished up the 2022 season with a 307 batting average, 377 on base percentage, a 456 slugging, and 833 OPS and a 5.8 WAR, compared to Turner, who had hit 298 with a 343 on base, 466 slugging, and 809 OPS and a 4.9 WAR. So either way, one or the other, you cannot go wrong. Now the question, and that brings up to another question: should the Phillies throw the bag at Turner? That depends on how much you're willing to offer a guy like Trey Turner, depending on the money and the years wise. Knowing that the benefit with Turner is he has seen the NL East pitching, but knowing that the 2023 schedule is going to be a lot different in 2023. And Bogarts too. Bogarts, and if you look, for those Phillies fans who've seen the 2023 schedule, we are going to be playing some AL East opponents, which Bogarts has seen it throughout his entire MLB career, spending with the Boston Red Sox. And let's be real, had a really not great season, to say the least. But the best option, yes, is Trey Turner is your better option. But if you want to go for the cheaper and safer route, and who has much more experience, especially in the postseason, and has 2 World Series rings, that is Xander Bogaerts. Xander Bogaerts can give you 10 or 15, 20 home runs at the most, whereas Turner at times can give you 20, 25 most of the time. But I feel like, like I said, either way, you cannot go wrong with these two options, knowing that Correa is going to be off the market very soon. Just for me, I just don't see, like, it's funny to me how, like, people say, oh, you want to pass on Bogarts, but realistically, it's like people you have to look at the numbers that these two put up. Obviously, yes, the batting, Bogarts put up a better batting average, better on base, better OPS, and has a better WAR. But the slugging, yes, that goes into Trey Turner. But Trey Turner also put up some decent numbers as well. But Bogarts, in my honest opinion, has better numbers than Trey Turner. Yes and no, not in the stolen base category, because Bogarts has never really been known to steal bags. The way that I can describe Xander Bogaerts is how he is a contact. I mean, he can give you contact power. He can steal a couple bags every so often if you need him to, just to get things going. Knowing that that's the Phillies' MO is learn how to steal bags, which we kind of really stolen a lot of bases throughout especially under Rob Thompson, though. I think like over 70 stolen bases to finish the year. But yeah, I mean, we have guys either way. We can. That's the way that I see it. It's, like I said, just either way, we have guys you can get at least either Turner or Bogaerts can give you stolen bases. That's for sure. But before we get any further, though, let's get into some comments. What up, Chad? What up, Flame? Appreciate everybody coming through the chat too. For those who want to cop some Phillies Sports Top Podcast merch, the link is down below at my Spreadshirt store. Link down below, so you guys don't want to check out some merch ideas, hoodies, backpacks, especially with the hoodie season coming up with finally fall and winter has now upon us. Make sure you click the link down below and check out all your Philly Sports Talk Podcast merch options. But with that out of the way, let's kind of keep going. Let's and bring up another question too. Can the Phillies run it back? Now, I do think this team can run it back, but with some of the issues that I've seen, like I said, we don't really have that much to really fix per se. But like I said, there are some spots on this team I think we can definitely improve. Especially the middle of relief part of the bullpen. We have a lot of guys that did elect to free agency and may or may not come back depending on what they want to do or what they're looking for. Because I feel like one option is bring back Syndergaard at least on another 1-year deal, maybe 2-year deal on a very cheap option. Because I feel like now the way that I see it. Now, before I know there's going to be some Phillies fans kind of be pissed off when I said that, because it's like, hear me out. The reason why I say bring back Syndergaard at least on a 1-year, 2-year deal, like say, 2-year, $10 million, or maybe even less than that, use it for the bullpen purposes. Because if you really looked at how Syndergaard has performed out of the bullpen, Syndergaard is Syndergaard is not the same pitcher. And I even talked about this many, many times over before. Syndergaard is not the same pitcher he was 4 to 5 years ago. No, he's turned into more of a contact type of guy. Yes, I mean, there's a couple instances where he can get up to 95, 96 when he really needs to. But most of the time, it's just pitching the contact. A lot of times that has been very beneficial for the Phils. There are times that has bit us in the ass because of that. So, that's the reason why I would rather have him as a bullpen piece, because I think he's been somewhat effective out of the bullpen. There's a lot of times too. I just feel like this team, they got potential to be a World Series contender. That's for sure. Well, like I said, there's a lot of instances where we had to improve in some areas. Obviously middle relief, because we knew the back end's pretty much, I would say, set in stone, especially with Sir Anthony Dominguez. And stuff like that. I mean, if you can just fix up your setup guys, the middle relief, kind of retinker with them a little bit. Knowing that we have some pitching prospects, some of our top 3 pitching prospects are up on the way, maybe for 2023, maybe in 2024. A guy like Griff McGarry, Andrew Painter, McAble's already on their way up. Well, we know that Griff McGarry might be the first. I think to be the first guy we might see coming up to the major leagues. And the reason I say that is because I feel like we already promoted him to AAA, so we might see Griff McGarry first, and then we might see either Painter and Abel either move up, have another good year at AA, or maybe then try to promote them into AAA. And I think, because like I said, I mean, our farm system isn't terrible by any stretch of the means, but if you looked at the last handful of years of how this farm system was, it wasn't the greatest. I think we're towards the bottom in terms of farm system talent. It has really not really been good, I would say. But like I said, I mean, I think the Phillies can run it back, especially even, try to make some splashes in free agency, which I think they will. Usually a lot of times before the winter meetings, but I think that's where most of the time I think the Phillies will have the last couple of years that the Phillies have done their damage is to pick them up before the winter meetings, which they have done that. So I think that's what they're kind of doing. I feel like the front office kind of in discussion. Yeah. But like I said, I mean, for those who are just coming in, I try to put this Trey Turner and Xander Bogaerts, or especially the Xander Bogaerts, by the way. A lot of people, the fact that people want to pass on Xander Bogaerts because, yes, I mean, he's 30 years old, and the fact that he's this is the way that I see it. The fact that people want to pass on Xander Bogaerts, who was also a finalist for a Gold Glove, I don't even know if Trey Turner was even for a finalist for a Gold Glove. Not that I've seen, anyways. It is shocking that we didn't see any baseball news, but like I said, this is kind of more of a Phillies kind of talk right now. But looking at everything, what I've seen, Bogart, you gotta give Bogaerts some love though. It's I don't know. Like I don't understand why people want to pass him. Yes, granted, yes, Bogart is 30, but you have to realize of the situation he was in, and the fact that yes, the Boston Red Sox was not a good situation. I mean, if you looked at some of the team's numbers, Xander Bogaerts probably was one of the better hitters in that. Oh, good Lord, that abysmal. Let me take a look here. The American Leash. I mean, like I said, Bogaerts was, even though it was a runner-up for the Gold Glove, obviously that belongs to Jeremy Pena, but you have to realize, too, of where that is shocking. But like I said, I'll talk more on that later on. Probably that's for a stream for a different day, I would say. Knowing that this is a lot of things too that I would say, I don't know, man. But another thing is too, and another question, like I said, and I've talked about, can the Phillies run it back? I think, like I said, I think they can. I do think they do need to really get stuff going. And what I mean by that is try to improve on what they have. Oh God. And it's just the fact that the fact of the matter is, the Phillies, and surprising, and for those who have seen me kind of talk about this team, is that my apologies. Is that I think the fact that this team made the World Series in itself is impressive, to say the least. For a team that has, I would say, average to below average players, I mean, it's crazy. It's really crazy to see of how much this team is. I would say, I don't know, man. It's just it's been it's crazy enough. But another question is too, which, since we didn't talk about the shortstops and second base and stuff like that, especially with Trey Turner, Xander Bogaerts. Another question, shout out to Key in the building or Vic for 3 for this one. Will we see Jenny Segura back in the Phillies uniform? I will probably say no. And here's why. I think, what the hell? And but the way that I say it, the reason why I say no is that Segura is going to be 33, and you can definitely see that his age is finally catching up with him. And not the same player as he used to be, even though he has been one of our most consistent hitters the last couple years. I just feel like now. Oh yeah, I know that my Phillies are fine, but this is the way that I see it. I think we have a lot of pieces. I'm gonna say we don't need like a full retool, but there's some areas where I think we can be better. And one of those places, and definitely, we're definitely moving Stott to second. I think that's kind of the ideal situation to put Stott. And Stott has played really good second base. Which, looking at it, when I looked at it, if you really looked at it from the eye test, I mean, the shortstop really doesn't really. I mean, look, even though Stott came up as a shortstop, but I feel like Stott at this, even though he's got a lot of time to grow, which and I've talked about this a lot of times too, the amount of hate that this kid gets is it's ridiculous. The fact that's the fight, like, yeah, granted, yes, he's playing his very first World Series, his very first postseason, has had his moments. There's a thing called growth and development. This is a lot of times I feel like this fan base, a lot of times, a good portion of it, I would say, like they're not. We got to be stop being so goddamn impatient. This a lot of times. This is the problem I have a lot of times with Phillies fans. Sometimes some of them are just impatient as freaking hell, and that's the reason why I do feel like nowadays, like you can't really expect to see. We might not have like a Jeremy Payne type of player. We never really had that since the days of when we had before that World Series team. We had Rollins, Howard, Utley, Chooch, and all that. Sai is going to come into his own one way or another throughout his. It boggles my mind of how much bullshit that these I don't know. Like it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous to say the least. But that's besides the point. But another thing is too, it's just like I said, going back to what I said about Stott. Stott, for a guy of his size and the kind of power that swing that he has, for me, I think he's more built as a second baseman because of his size and and we've seen at times too where he has the time struggling throws from shortstop, which kind of leads me to believe that he might be more of a temper to be a second baseman than a shortstop. Knowing that we're definitely going to be shopping for a shortstop, like I said, between Turner and or Bogaerts. Know that Correa might be going elsewhere to get the bag, because I've been seeing a lot of time on social media too, like that when the news that Phillies were showing more interest in Xander Bogaerts. There are some part of this fan base that don't want Xander Bogaerts, and I even read off the numbers too. And this is coming from Baseball Reference too. Xander Bogaerts in 2022, right now into his age 30 season, has a career WAR of 34, almost about a 35 career WAR. So far in this so far at the end of the season, posted a 307 batting average, a 377 on base, 456 slugging, 833 OPS, and a 5.8 WAR. Whereas with Turner, you're getting at the age of 29 years old, a 29.7 career WAR, 298 batting average, 343 on base, 466 slugging, an 809 OPS, a 4.9 WAR, and with obviously 20. The stolen bases is by a country mile. That belongs to Trey Turner because Trey Turner is pretty much the stolen base master, I would say. But that's besides the point. But another thing is too, I want to kind of discuss is, hang on, let me bring up my topics again because I actually have it written on my iPhone right now. Another question that shout out to Nightings too, another good buddy of mine, another good content creator, is the question posed, especially with the outfield, we might even, once Harper gets back to right, we might be seeing Kyle Schwarber back as a DH. Should we consider get Masataka and Yoshida? Now, a lot of people, and I talked about Yoshida a couple of times, especially in very good purposes from what we understood, that Yoshida did idolize Bryce Harper. I mean, even say he wants to get posted to play for Philadelphia. Because I mean, what you're getting out, I mean, yes, and he's going to be 30. But we've seen a lot of times Japanese players who would come in the late 20s to early 30s actually really do well. But just how the fuck do you spell this guy's name? Bear with me, guys. Let's see, Yoshida. So what you're getting out with Yoshida though is mostly like power, contact, pretty much almost the 5 tools except for the stolen bases. So the stolen bases, I mean, the most he's ever had in his career is in 2020 with 8 stolen bases, but only been caught 5 times. But I don't really, what you're getting out, like I said, what you're getting out of Yoshida, you're getting contact, speed, power. Except for like I said, the stolen bases, it's not his kind of his forte. Even though we've seen Japanese players have a tendency to steal a shit ton of bases, but when it comes to because. At the MPP, and this is where I've made this comparison, and if you looked at AAA baseball, that's kind of what the style of play is for the MPB, which is the Japanese Pro League, I would say. With Yoshida, this past season posted a 335 batting average, a 447 on base, .561 slug with an OPS of 1008. If you go back, I mean, so far, I mean, and that's just because I actually think they moved the Oryx Buffaloes to the Pacific League. But looking at as a career wise in the MPB, a career 327 hitter, and 421 on base, 539 slugging, an OPS of 960. Or, well, actually 950. Well, that's just the MPB. But in all levels, though, has a career OPS of 957, a 326 on batting average, 419 on base, 538 slugging. But so far, though, I mean, that's another guy you can really not want to miss out on, especially even want to have another guy that can make contact and actually can give you home runs every so often. And rightfully so. I mean, 2018 to 2019, where he posted 2019 to be exact, in his age 25 season, posted 29 homers, 85 RBIs. You know, that's his career. But the career high RBIs is 86. Even though in 2018, he posted with 26 homers. So this guy has a potential to drive, well, technically has a potential, the ability to drive in at least almost 100 runs every given season if you wanted him to. Or like this too, even though this past season, his 21 home runs, 88 RBIs. So far, though, I mean, with 80, and this is what you're going to get out of him too. And I got to tell you too, like when you looked at it, he really has not struck out a ton. I mean, he's averaging. I mean, he has a tendency to walk a lot more than he strikes out. Now, 2016, which is his rookie season, has struck out more than he does walked. Same with his first two seasons in the league in Japan. But looking at, from 2017, where he walked 40 times to 36, struck out 30 to 36. 20. I mean, obviously, that's just for that. 46 walks. 2018 walked 69 times, even though the strikeouts were a little bit high to 74. But that's really nothing to really say much that he's a strikeout machine, because you really think about, like I said. Now, and he has probably one of the better statistical years when it comes to drawing walks and trying to get on base. Where in 2019 he struck out 64 times, but he has walked 79 times. So this guy has an ability to have good plate discipline, something that I think a certain someone can actually learn from. But you know exactly who I'm talking about. Hell, even 2021. Obviously, break up 2 leagues, has walked 59 times and struck only 26. Even though 2020, a lot of times I don't really want to count that, but unfortunately they have to. He has walked 29 or struck out 29 times to 72. But in this past season, probably put up one of the best, strikeout or walk to strikeout ratios that I've seen. He's walked 82 times to 42 strikeouts. So basically, he's, like I said, this kid at 29 years old, we've seen a lot of, has shown he's walking more than he's striking out. Now, like I said, his first 2 years in Japan and the Nippon Professional Baseball, yes, the strikeouts were a little bit high, but between like 34 and 36 when his first 2 years in the league, which granted, in his rookie season at his age 22 season. But looking at how this guy has really shown, another left-handed bat, can play really good defense. I mean, when you looked at his, as a career-wise, someone committed 12 errors and has a 987 fielding percentage. So basically, you can use him also in left as well. So pretty much look like he's, the guy this dude is just like, can really put you up some good numbers. Now, the biggest question is, can all that translate to the major leagues? That remains to be seen. We saw, all the hype that Seiya Suzuki has had. Yeah, and it has translated. Now, minus the fact that, Seiya Suzuki had dealt with injuries, but that's besides the point. I do feel like the Phillies have to really make a push to get someone like a Japanese superstar. For those who have not follow Phillies baseball as long, or be like a diehard. The only two players we ever had was Taguchi, and I think what the hell is his name? I don't see that happening. Like, we don't even know what we're gonna if we do want to pull on that trigger. Who the hell? We don't have nothing to give up for him. But like I said, that's right. That's the reason why Yoshida comes into play. You know what I mean? Because of outfield purposes. Plus, I do feel like, that Yoshida can we can use an extra-handed left-handed bat in the lineup, because if you really look at it, I mean, the way that we see it, I would not mind having another left-handed bat, depending on the matchups, though, because I feel like I said, I mean, with Yoshida, though, you're getting at least a career 320, a 326 hitter, has just almost an OPS of 1,000 career-wise, which is surprising to say. But who's to say? We'll like I said, we'll see what happens. I do feel like, Yoshida's another guy I would like to have, especially and have Schwarber go back to the DH spot. And that's just the way that I see it. But yeah. So another thing I want to talk about: who do we keep, release, or trade at this point? Right now, so far, what we've released most of the guys that were on 1-year deals who had declared free agency. We might have another one going into next year if we don't wind up. Even though that's a very good question. Do we even? I don't think. All right, let me just see. All right. But I mean, and that's a very good question. I'm looking at that now. Goddamn, before my phone shuts off. So we do not have a first round pick this year. The only pick we had, or actually we do. I am a complete idiot. We have the 29th pick. Because of, let's see, what the hell? So it looks like they're going by so it looks like for 2023, they just kind of just went in reverse order of the winning percentage. So basically, everybody that's above, like, it seems like the Rays, Blue Jays, the Mets, Mariners, all that stuff. They get the later round picks. That's the way that's kind of how they laid it out. So we do have a first round pick, 29th. I don't know exactly who we're going to get. I don't know who's going to be in this draft class. Like I said, I'll do my best to do like a film study on the 2023 draft class, because there's going to be some, because that's the way that I kind of want to talk about that. But that's besides the point for the coming up the draft. At this point, though, I mean, it's funny because, I mean, if people want to say, trade Rhys Hoskins and all that shit, and there's been very interesting points. It's like, what are you going to get in return for a guy like Rhys Hoskins, or knowing that he's going to be not an unrestricted feature by 2024, but has another arbitration year, which is in this season, and knowing that, yes, he's already in his age 30 season, his defense has been very questionable. A very streaky player in its own right. And, John Clark asked this question to JP Morosi. And Morosi had some interesting things. It's like, said, that the Phillies if the Phillies want to do, or he would ask Morosi, would you even want to trade Rhys Hoskins? Now, Morosi goes on to say, I'll be very reluctant if the Phillies do wind up trading Rhys Hoskins, because the question is, like for me, I don't know exactly where his trade value stands in terms of a first baseman, because knowing that our first baseman, we've been through so many different first basemen over the years since after Howard left, left in 2011. I mean, we went through guys like Tommy Joseph at one point. We even had JT there a couple times. We had Alec Bohm there, but I mean, we just really haven't found the guy to really solidify, to lock down first base, because first base is always has been I would say kind of take a step backwards since after Howard left. Now, granted, Howard has not really been good after he left, in terms of what he brings. But a guy like Hoskins, though, I know a lot of times people want him gone, even myself included. But you have to look at it realistically. Who's going to want him? That's one of the biggest important questions. Who is going to want Rhys Hoskins for a guy that's been questionable defensively, has a streaky offensive game? It's just not the guy you don't really want to have, because at this point, I mean, because a lot of times, and yeah, rightfully so, the Phillies fan base, we want consistency. No, and Hoskins isn't that. No, the dude's just been consistent the last 3 to 4 years. I mean, there's only a couple times where he has 2 good years, and that's been 2 good offensive years. I mean, a decent rookie season. I mean, when he came, I mean, even though despite he was a late September call up against the San Diego Padres before they made the moves that they did and got to the championship series. But we're looking at it from what Rhys Hoskins brings. Now, there's going to be times where I'm going to say, yes, his defense is questionable. There are times where he has played some outstanding defense. There's going to be times where he's going to play shit the bed defensively. It's like there's nothing in between what you're going to get out of Hoskins, and that's the biggest issue. Because yes, with that, that Hoskins at times, I don't know, but that's besides the point. But another thing is too. Now, another question that has been brought to by my buddy Nightings is get Carlos Rodon to be exact, to really help this rotation. Because if you really think about it, if we do want to make a push for Rodon too and add him to this rotation, at best you could slide him into 3 and then push Suarez to the 4. Because yes, Rodon, you're also getting at the age of he's 29 as well. Posted a 2.88 ERA. I think like a 6.1 WAR. I think this past season too. At the same time, so you're going to get at least good value out of him. So I wouldn't mind at least try to at least throw a decent bag at him in terms of what the Phillies want to do, especially because the rotation too. I mean, like I said, the front 3 could be front 4 if you really think about it. Could be a lot better. Suarez is good, but I mean, I think Suarez at best is more than is a 4 in most rotations. But I do think if we do want to push him for Rodon, and hypothetically we do add Rodon, most at best, I mean, even though on some rotations he could be a 2, a 3, even though with the White Sox, when he was with the White Sox, was their number 1. I think that's before they got Dylan Cease too. And with bad teams though, I mean, knowing that if I'm like Rodon, though, even though he has selected for agency, I will at least try to go someone that's contending. That the Giants at times, they've shown, this season that, yeah, the 2021 season was a fluke. Knowing that, if me and my brother and my co-host talked about that. But I think overall, though, I think this team has really shown, I think they're shown to be very aggressive in the offseason. Now, the question is who they're going to get. That remains to be seen. But like I said, no really major moves will be not just for the Phils, but like I said, all 32 MLB, all 30 MLB teams. Just because, I mean, usually a lot of times none of the bigger splashes come before the winter meetings, which is I think mid to like the first or second week in December. So we'll see how that goes for the MLB hot stove, because that's when where some of these guys are going to go. I mean, we've seen some minor signings here and there, some just mostly re-signings, I would say. Really nothing too, really too important, especially for the Phillies anyways. I think the Phillies are still kind of, because the way that I'm putting myself in Nebraska's shoes, I'm kind of like putting discussions to where like looking at some like different like players who are available in the free agent market, kind of planning out how much you're willing to give certain players, got like a Trey Turner, Xander Bogaerts, Carlos Rodon, maybe try to make a push for Yoshida from Japan. Who knows? I mean, it's just been like I said, the Phillies off season is going to be very interesting, not just for, like I said, mostly just for the Phillies purposes, because that's kind of what we're talking about now. But like I said, and going back to what I said about James Segura, I mean, as much as I love the guy, like I said, I mean, Segura just really isn't what we. No, I think since coming up that finger injury, I think he just really has not been, I would say, his usual consistent self. There were instances where he has just looked lost. I mean, Harper was the same way, but Harper figured out a way to really get back on track. But with Segura, Segura, though, you're getting more of a veteran. I mean, soon to be entering his age 33 season. Now the question is, who is going to want to pick him up? That remains to be seen. They could use a guy that of his status, because let's be real, I think Segura isn't really terrible. I mean, when he's healthy, he's very consistent when he's healthy. But especially with that I think it was a thumb injury, I think it was. But when he came back from that, he just looked very lost. Like he's just not looked like the Gene Segura that we saw the last couple of years, where he's just been. I would say, I mean, even though his plate discipline's kind of been out the window, I mean, that's just kind of how Segura is. But the way that I see it is I would expect to. I don't know. Like Segura, though, Segura's a weird case, though, and we don't want to make it a push. But I do think we're definitely going to try to upgrade, try to get at least some younger pieces. I mean, as much as I like Segura, but Segura at times has a tendency to has shown his age. That's the way that I have seen it, and the Phillies fan base has seen it. Segura, I think he's going to be a fan favorite no matter what if he does go elsewhere. Looking at even we got Wheeler for the next year, actually. Well, next 2 years. Well, technically, and this one would be the next full year. But I do think the Phillies are going to find a way to bring him back or try to extend with Zach Wheeler, because Zach Wheeler, since bringing him in, has been a consistent workhorse for us. A runner for the Cy Young, which is, that kind of really, well, that's besides the point, because, I mean, look, Corbin Marcel's had a good year, but good Lord, you could not tell me. But looking at everything else, though, I think as a team, though, even though we really don't need much to fix, but I do feel like going forward, like say going down the line, knowing that we're going to have our pitching prospects up sooner rather than later. I mean, like I said, Griffin Gary's going to be the first one to come up. I would say try to start him in the bullpen a little bit, try to get his feet wet a little bit. That's the way that I would see it, and knowing what. Like I said, I've really never really paid attention to the prospects, but from what I've understood about it, especially with Painter and Abel, if we can get guys like that, having with him and with them and Nola and Wheeler, I think that you have another potential to have like two Zach Wheeler type of guys in that rotation, not some more workhorses, which I do think. Now, granted, too, yes, I know they're going to be young, but you're going to have to. Like I said, this goes back to what I said about the growth and development, especially with Sock and some of the hate that he does. And this is where a lot of times I have a tendency to clap back at people, and you have and a lot of times too, if you have not been around the game as follow the game or follow these guys that have throughout the minors and stuff like that throughout their careers. But it's just like. Yeah, like we got to pump the brakes. That's all I'm saying. Like the fan base at times has to pump the brakes because it's trying not to overreact. Like Stott really didn't have a good rookie season. What do you expect? Because I've never seen people really overreact to a guy that has maybe open day roster. At times had a tendency to struggle. Yes, which all rookies do. And obviously too. And there was a couple instances where especially under Joe Girardi, who has really never helped the kid develop. But like I said, let's go back to what I said during the season recap. But, and the fact that, when we fired Joe Girardi on June 3rd, it just seems to me that's where when we brought in, you had Rob Thompson take over as the team. This is where we've seen like some of these younger guys, guys like a Brandon Marsh, Shimon DeSosa, Alec Bohm, for the love of God. Even though we have tremendous criticisms on Alec Bowman for good reason, mostly defensively, because we know how he's a decent hitter and he's going to get better as he fills into his body, or I say matures. Because I mean, we got some homegrown talent that we can work with, and Stott could be the sky's the limit with him. So I mean, especially like I said, if we do want to say, like I say, Trey Turner, Xander Bogaerts. and have Stott at second base, which I think that's kind of what the plan is. At the end of the day, you can still, the thing with Stott too is yes, even though Stott has, I would say, and mostly like an unorthodox way of doing things, but this is what happens when you learn under a guy like Bryce Harper, obviously another fellow Vegas guy. This is why I think Bryce Harper has really a lot of times has shown to be kind of a mentor to some of these young guys. We've seen Harper, and definitely Kevin Long for sure. You can give some credit too, because we've seen guys, work on some of their swings and how they, really put up a good at bats. Stott, as crazy as it sounds, has a tendency to be like Utley a lot of times, be a left-handed pest, puts up good at bats. Either he want to get, he has really some of the big moments that this kid has bring up. But yeah, but other than that though, but it's just for me looking at this team as a whole. I think this team's got to have an opportunity to run it back and try to make another postseason push. Now, knowing that finally the drought is finally fucking over, because let's be real, 11 years is too goddamn long. And that's the way that I would say, because like I said, I don't think we have I wouldn't say we don't need like a full retool, which we have been doing that the last couple of years. I do feel like I said, there's some spots I think we can improve on. And definitely the outfield, I think, Schwarber was okay to say the least in left field, but I think he's more built for a DH spot, which I do think that's what's going to happen. Knowing that we're going to definitely have Harper back in right. But other than that, though, like I said, there's some options out there. Trying to look for a guy like Matsasaka Yoshida. Like I said, can give you everything. Contact, power, knows how to draw walks. Which nowadays, who doesn't? We don't. Most of this lineup is, good portion of it, I would say, knows how to draw walks. But there's certain spots you could probably would fix. But yeah, that's the way else I would see with it. But that's just me. But like I said, I don't want to go on too much further because, like I said, being kind of talking a lot of things too, is that either, like I said, with the Trey Turner and Xander Bogaerts thing, like I said, you can't really go wrong one or the other. But yeah, that's just me. But outside of that, the free agency, we're still in this early days of the free agency because we don't see, like I said, we don't really see the bigger moves, especially the Phillies and the other 20 other MLB teams. But that's just me. But with that being said, that's going to wrap it up for episode 16 of the Phillies Talk Podcast. Appreciate everybody that's come through the chat. Make sure you leave a like on it. Make sure you hit the like button over on the Hardcore Sports Network as well. But with that being said, this is Robert from the Phillies Sports Talk Podcast. I'll see you guys in the next one.